I,
So as so Miss Jim, I just want to let you know that this interview is going to be recorded. So my understanding is your proper name, you go by Jim, but your proper name is James Williams, correct?
that's correct.
And are you employed by Vision Appraisal?
Yes.
Actually, what's the official name? Is the name of the company Vision Government Solutions?
Vision Government Solutions Incorporated.
Okay. And what is your position with Vision?
Senior appraiser.
How long have you been employed there?
14 years.
Have you been a senior appraiser during all 14 years of your employment with Vision?
Yes, pretty much. That does cross-reference to project supervisor as well. I have project supervision status in the state. I typically don't run the projects. I primarily handle the commercial portions of those jobs, and that usually uses just a senior appraiser designation. The project supervisor usually uses that job specific. As to Enfield, June Perry would be the project supervisor for that job. So,
are you certified in the state of Connecticut to supervise a job?
yes.
What certifications do you hold with the state of Connecticut?
I have all 4 of my revaluation designations. I'm the only person in the company to hold all 4. That will be the residential, land residential, commercial industrial, personal property, and supervisor.
Well, I hope you get paid extra for being the only one that has all 4.
Well, we don't do personal property, so that really doesn't matter, but they treat me pretty well. I'm happy at Vision.
Good. And I won't ask if you just said that because we're taping this. So I'm looking here at your resume. So I see you have a lot of years of experience in real estate appraisal work. So let me just start with your educational background. Did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
Where'd you graduate from?
Morgan City, Louisiana.
Okay. Where's that located in Louisiana?
Down south near New Orleans.
Okay. Actually, I think we're going to New Orleans this summer. We're going to Destin, Florida. Somebody rented a huge house in Destin, Florida. So we may fly into New Orleans and drive over there for a couple.
I've got a few friends going to New Orleans next week. Believe it or not.
Oh, Mardi Gras coming up, right?
Well, it is. I've been working so much, I haven't had anything else on my mind.
So you're an LSU fan?
Not really now. I've been gone too long now. I lived in Connecticut for 24 years, so I'm a UConn fan now for the most part. So
all right.
I left all my Southern blood back in the South. And I married a girl from Connecticut. So
all right, fair enough. So after graduating high school, did you further your education at any university or college?
No.
How did you get into the real estate appraisal business?
I began working for an assessor's office early in my career, and then I took appraisal courses to get my appraisal designations.
Where was that first assessor's office?
Yes, I was Pushmataha County, Oklahoma.
All right, so your first job was in Oklahoma. And how many years ago was that? Approximately?
I began in 1990, and I was a deputy assessor until 1996.
All right, so you started off there in 1990 through 96, and then after that, what did you do?
I left Oklahoma assessor's office, and then I began my revaluation career in Arkansas, which was from 1996 to 2000.
Okay. And then after you left Arkansas, where'd you go?
I moved up to New England. I started working for Colair and Trumbull. That's now known as Tyler Technologies. They were the largest revaluation company in the nation, and I accepted a job with them, and they moved me up to New England in the year 2000.
Okay. Then you met that girl from Connecticut at some point.
About a year later.
So then you, looking at your resume, it looks like you had a job with Appraisal Resource Company. Is that correct?
Yes, which is now Northeast Revaluation out of Rhode Island.
Okay, so with Cole Layer, you were a project supervisor doing both commercial and residential work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then with the Appraisal Resource Company, which is now what? What's the name of it again?
Northeast Revaluation.
And you were a commercial manager and project supervisor, correct?
Correct.
So you're at that time you're responsible for valuation of properties for revaluation purposes.
Yes.
All right. So at those two, first at Cole Layer, did you do any appraisal, any work regarding revaluations in Connecticut?
Yes.
And do you remember what communities you worked with during that time from 2000 to 2005?
I began in Greenwich, Connecticut, and one of my first projects that I've managed was Groton, Connecticut. Worked in Madison, Connecticut. Kind of going fuzzy back. We're going 20 years ago now, but those communities with Cole Layer Trumbull.
Okay. By the way, I forgot to introduce you. I just realized to my colleague Matt Studer,
Hello.
who's with me as well today.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing well.
So then when you were at Appraisal Resource Company, did you do revaluation work in Connecticut?
Yes, we did.
And could you tell me some of the communities you worked with at that time?
Madison, Connecticut, Meriden, Connecticut, Norwich. Probably the biggest three.
Okay. And then at that time, when you were working with Cole Layer or the other company, Appraisal Resource, did you happen to do any appraisal work or any revaluation work for the town of Enfield?
No.
And then in 2009, in July of 2009, you took a job with Vision Appraisals, Vision Government Solutions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And my understanding is you've been a senior appraiser responsible for managing the valuation work associated with their municipal revaluations.
That's correct.
And so my understanding is that Vision has valued the town of Enfield in a few revaluations prior to the 21 revaluation. So I think that was like 16 and 11. Did you participate in Vision's work in any of the Enfield revaluations prior to 2021?
Yes, the previous two revaluations to this past one.
And what did you do in those previous revaluations?
I was basically a senior appraiser, but I was not in charge of the commercial valuation. I was more or less the second in charge. And I did do some residential review as well during the previous revaluations.
Okay. With regard to townwide revaluations, in particular with regard to the commercial property, how does Vision generally value commercial property in a revaluation?
Based on the market value.
Okay, but so the end result is you want to determine what the fair market value is, but in getting there, so let me ask you this: what approaches the value? What different approaches to value do you use in valuing commercial property in a revaluation?
We use all three approaches: the cost approach, sales approach, and the income approach. So we factor all three of those methods.
For purposes of so my understanding is that with regard to Enfield's 2021 revaluation, that you were in charge of valuing the commercial properties. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so where you had good data, let's assume for commercial properties, which were deemed to be income producing properties, where you had good income and expense information regarding the property, both actual and market, Did you generally use the income approach to value those properties?
Yes, we did.
And where you generally use the income approach on those properties, did you also do another secondary approach, such as a cost approach or a sales comparative approach?
A cost approach.
And in what manner did you, so let me ask you, retract that question. So you separately did an income approach and then separately did a cost approach, correct?
Correct.
And did you generally use the income approach as the primary the approach to determine the fair market value?
No, the cost approach is normally the primary method we use.
Why is that?
It is more consistent, at least for mass appraisal purposes, than to use income. It's more of an assessor's preference on how they want things done in the future. Most assessors want things valued on cost, so they are able to manipulate the value in the interim years. Give you an example. A building takes out in a permit and adds central air conditioning in a building. The assessor would go out, change from no air conditioner to, central up to the date air conditioning, and it wouldn't change the value because it didn't change the rent, it didn't change the cap rate, it didn't change anything of the property. So it makes sense to value these based on a cost approach, so the assessors can manipulate the value of
But
those.
when I understand having the cost approach on the field card for that purpose, but do you quite often do you determine the value on an income approach and then back into the cost approach on the field card?
Absolutely. We weigh actual income more on income producing properties.
Repeat that again.
We weight the income value, the actual incomes on income producing properties.
That's what I thought. So my understanding is that generally in a mass evaluation for the commercial properties that are deemed to be income producing properties, where there is where you're able to identify good income and expenses, both actual and market, that you'll determine the value by the income approach, and then for purposes of the field card, you'll back into the cost approach.
Correlate the number.
Yeah, that's a better way to describe it instead of
Right.
back in. So if that's the case, then would you say on income producing properties where you have good income and expense data that you would mostly determine value based on the income approach and then correlate that value based on a cost approach for purposes of the field card?
Yes.
To what extent do you consider income and the actual income and expense data that the town has received on the income and expense statements when determining when determining what the market income and expenses should be for an income producing property?
Well, we get the actual income properties, and then we use those actual incomes to determine what is a fair, median value, and which we consider to be the market rents. And we'll rely more on the market rents than the actual rents. At the time of valuation, we do look at the actual rents, but they may be specific, if it was vacant, then we can't 100% rely on that. So we're more relying on our models that we set the market rents at based on the actuals.
So is it fair to say that when determining the income and expenses in an income approach for an income producing property, that you'll generally use market income and expense information as supported by the actuals.
Correct.
And so you're not just, is it fair to say you're not just valuing the property based on the actual income and expenses? You're actually making a determination as to what the market is for the income and expenses, while is that correct?
Yes, we're not necessarily using their actual 100% of the time. We like to be close if it's good and reliable, but we take each parcel case by case. A lot of times it may be an owner occupied property related that we may unknowingly know that they're related, and they're providing an overinflated actual. So there's times when we know that we cannot weight that too much because it's obviously a related unit. So we're probably going to more rely on what everyone else is paying, for market rents than just what their actual is telling us.
What information do you rely upon to determine capitalization rate?
The capitalization rate, we determine a lot with realty rates. We'll get a lot of our information from realty rates, and then basically just what the local market is, indicative. If we get actual sales, is one of our main places to look if we have actual sales of properties that have good actual income, and we'll develop cap rates that way. If not, we'll use a band of investment based on realty rates and use those. Typically the averages of what realty rates, depending on what community. In Enfield, we would be kind of in the average range of what realty rates would use.
When you say realty rates, are you talking about derived cap rates from sales of real estate in the area?
Yes.
So for and do you so I in deciding what sales data for cap rates to consider, do you consider actual sales that took place in the area where you're able to then look at the actual income and the actual net operating income, and then you're in a position to derive the cap rate?
We do look at those, but don't find that that's the best case scenario. We do at times have those, but it's not in every community we're able to actually have those.
Are you looking at publications?
Yes, publications, as is realty rates. That's our main publication that we'll pull a lot of our numbers from.
What are the publications that you rely upon for cap rates in the area?
Realty rates.
Okay.
Myself, we have different appraisers. It uses different things, but realty rates is where I'll rely on most of mine.
Is that the name of the study, realty rates?
Yes, realty rates. The company has a subscription to that.
And I believe you said that you also consider the mortgage band of investment approach for determining cap rates as well?
Yes.
Can you tell me how that works?
Well, we usually let the MAI, he typically does those type of build-ups for the band of investment methods. A little bit more complex. We have some worksheets we could provide if you would like to see some breakdowns. I could probably get those to you.
I mean, I've seen those before. I just wanted to understand what you've used. So basically, is it fair to say that you're taking into consideration analyses that others have done with regard to the mortgage band of investment approach?
Yes, that'd be correct.
And you mentioned an MAI. Is there somebody within the company who's an MAI who assists you with your cap rate analysis?
Yes, there is.
And who is that?
That's Mike Torello. He's a vice president of the company.
All right, so is it fair to say that Mike Torello provides you with assistance with determining the appropriate cap rates for different classifications of commercial and industrial property within the reval?
Absolutely, yes.
And then are you ultimately the decision maker as to what cap rates you apply for
Yes,
different
I am.
properties?
Yes, I am.
And based on your experience and the certifications that you hold in the state of Connecticut, do you have the are you do you feel that you have the professional capacity to make those decisions?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, folks would from time to time will have concerns about their values and will participate in the informal hearing process, correct?
That is correct.
Do you participate in those meetings?
I handled 100% of the in-person hearings in the town of Enfield,
With regard to residential and commercial, or just commercial?
both residential and commercial. All the commercial in person or on phone, and then all the residential that was in person, I handled those as well.
So you're the man. You're the guy.
I know where all the dirt would be. Yes. I see if there's a problem in the town, I would be the guy that would know about it.
All right.
I would be surprised if I don't know, and I really don't know of any problems. Everything went kind of smooth.
Well, that's why we're talking to you. So,
Okay.
with regard to the informals, my understanding was that there were 290. There was 230 meetings that were scheduled for informals, and that there were 291 second notices that went out regarding 291 properties that were considered in those meetings. Does that sound right?
That would sound close, yes.
And my understanding was that in approximately half of those notices, the value changed. Does that sound right?
It sounds right.
And in any of those notice that went out where the property changed, do you know if any of the property, if the values went up or did they all go down?
We typically don't. Occasionally, there are at times properties do go up if we had an error. I don't have a breakdown, but I do know that after the informals, that we wouldn't have increased if many, if any.
All right. So is it fair to say that most of the changes, if not all the changes, were produced reductions in the value?
Correct.
And what type of, so when folks came to you to get a reduction, do they just say, hey, Jim, it's a nice shirt you're wearing. I want, you seem like a nice guy. I'd like the value to go down half. Are they producing information to you?
Most people provide a pretty good case, of what they feel their value should be. They usually do a comparison. They'll get on our website. They'll do a little research of what their neighbors' houses are. They're more or less condition issues. We make, they'll bring in pictures. They'll tell us about the interior of the property. There may be easements on the property we're not aware of. A lot of things that happened in Enfield. There was a lot of wetland, a lot of unbuildable lots that I could recall. Just things that, what you don't see in the field typically comes out during the hearings.
And for those properties of which you may have changed the value, what type of information and documentation did folks provide to you that resulted in you making a change?
Depending on what type of change they have, if it's a condition change, we usually require, send a picture of the house. If we typically have the house in good condition and they tell us, it's dated on the interior, we provide a couple of photos of the interior and we can be the judge and we can do that. We also did inspections of properties. If they did want us to go back out and relook at the property, we would. Is for the cases of income commercial properties, it would be, them not providing income information, in the beginning, or them having a sudden change or a recent change in their income, where they may have had some vacancy since they had submitted their income and expense statement and just would like us to consider.
I think you told me earlier that you participated in the prior revaluations, and I think that took place in 11, 16 in Enfield. Is that correct?
Uh, 16. The years would sound pretty close, but yes, I did. I can, the previous three revaluations, I worked in Enfield.
Okay. And in thinking about what happened in the 21 revaluation in comparison to the two earlier revaluations that you participated in Enfield, was there anything unusual about the 21 revaluation from your perspective?
The only unusual thing is that we may have had a new assessor, and the market was incredibly changing at the time.
How is the market incredibly changing?
Well, it was increasing rapidly.
Well, the overall real estate market or certain segments of it?
Well, the residential market, more or less.
So, and when you did the revaluation in 21, was it your understanding that the residential market was increasing significantly?
Yes.
What was the commercial? How did the commercial market change from in the 21 revaluation from the prior revaluation 5 years earlier?
It wasn't, the commercial has not been quite as drastic as the residential was. The residential, had a much larger increase this revaluation than the previous.
Were there major changes in the commercial market?
No, not necessarily. I was just basically looking at what my model was, and I've done a lot of these towns. Basically, I've seen an increase in the land 20% and an increase in the building valuation 5%. So
Is that on the commercial?
that's on the commercial and industrial. So that's the basic result of my analysis of the town of Enfield's values.
So based on your work, there was an overall increase of 20% in the land and 5% for buildings or improvements for
Correct.
commercial and industrial properties from the 16 reval to the 21 reval.
Based on what we did to the actual models. So some of the individual properties may have seen changes based on the field review or, changes of data. But the result of what the models done, the valuation models, was what the increase of 20% of land and a 5% increase in building.
In comparison to other communities in which you did revaluations around 16 and then again in 21, how did Enfield compare?
Enfield compared very similar to what we've seen other communities. I actually went into Enfield and pretty much predicted what the numbers were going to do just based what I seen them do in other towns and knowing what Enfield, how it was set up and what it would be doing as well. And that would have been the office market was going down drastically, and the retail was pretty flat, and the industrial segment was doing very well, and the apartments were doing very, very well. And that was definitely the result of the Enfield revaluation and the same result we've seen of all the other communities that we've been doing.
And by the way, apartments,
Yes.
Some people think that's residential. That qualifies as that's within the commercial sector, correct?
Correct.
So is it fair to say that within the commercial sector, from 16 to 21 overall, and there may have been some anomalies within this would generally happen within classes, but that overall the value for office went down from 16 to 21.
Correct.
And overall, did the value of apartments go up?
Yes.
And what happened with retail?
Retail, I just have a report here. It looked like it had a 5% increase.
Is that in land and build and improvements or both?
Overall, that would be an overall.
Overall, so you told me that for commercial industrial properties overall, the land went up 20%, the building improvements went up 5%, correct?
Right.
Overall, building and land, overall total value for commercial industrial, what was the overall increase?
I don't think I have that information. I would be guessing if I told you I
No, I
don't
don't want
have
you to
that.
guess. That's fine.
Okay.
So other than that, other than the fact that you had a new assessor and the residential market, and the apartment market increased significantly, other than those two things, was there anything else was there anything that you thought was unusual about the 21 revaluation from your perspective?
No.
Did Vision follow its normal procedure and process in conducting its revaluation in Enfield?
Yes.
Are you aware of the fact that the Enfield Board of Assessment Appeals issued a report in May of 2022 after Vision had completed its revaluation and after the BAA had conducted its work, in which it was critical of the work that Vision did?
No.
The chairman of the BAA authored the report on behalf of the BAA, and one statement, his name was Attorney Tom Tyler, and one of the statements in the report was that Vision's report was more than just a little flawed. Do you agree that Vision's work in the revaluation in Enfield in 2021 was more than a little flawed?
I totally disagree with that. I would have been the first person to heard of any flaws, and I would personally take all responsibility because I worked on that job more than anyone. I am aware of zero flaws. The town is very simple to value. It's a very good town to work in. And I never heard any of this during the whole time I was in town or during the informal hearings.
One issue that was raised in this report by the BA was that Vision only contacted one broker to inquire about the Enfield market. And by the way, Miss Perry, when we interviewed her earlier today, she said that she did get information about the local market from the former assessor Della, as
Yes.
well as Vicky Rose, who works in the assessor's office, both of whom have been in Enfield for a long time. Did you work with or consult with any brokers in the area to get information about the Enfield commercial market as part of your work?
No.
Why?
Because I know every commercial cell and more of what's going on in the market than probably any broker in that area. I've been doing the values of most of the contiguous towns around Enfield for several years. I had all the information that I needed to conduct what I needed to do. If I would question, if a property was for sale, I do, get on the broker's website and, look at the information. But as far as directly contacting the broker, typically not.
Did you have enough information without having to contact any local brokers in order to accurately determine the appropriate market rent and the appropriate market rents for properties that you valued?
Absolutely. I think I've nailed every one of them according to the people who looked at my numbers. I totally feel that my numbers are good and supportable.
Who were the folks who looked at your numbers?
That would be all the taxpayers who come in and all the tax reps that support all the national companies come in. There are watchdogs. Unfortunately, they look over all of our cap rates. They're checking all of our data. They're checking their subject property versus all the other properties in town. And I get a pretty good sense from those guys, and they do it nationwide. And, I get a pretty good sense of those guys if I've done a good job or not. Because if I don't, I usually hear about it.
So did you receive any feedback from any tax revaluation specialists or tax representatives who indicated to you that they thought there were issues with your valuations of the commercial and industrial properties in Enfield?
We've had some meetings, some with some discussions, but nothing with any flaws that couldn't be worked out, that wasn't recognizable. Everything went very smoothly, I would say, during the hearing process.
Another conclusion reached in that report from the BAA was that Vision failed to provide consistent depreciation schedules for retail properties. In particular, it questioned the depreciation schedules that Vision used for the 2020 fiscal year for retail properties. Do you agree with that conclusion?
I don't agree with that. I have not seen an example. I don't know of any errors in our depreciation schedule. Nothing was ever brought to my attention of that.
Did anybody question during the revaluation in 21 or even after the revaluation 21 that there was any concerns whatsoever regarding the depreciations used for any of the retail properties?
No, not that I'm aware of. I've got documentation on all my informal hearings. I would typically make a note. If it was a question about the condition of the property, or was this about the depreciation tables itself?
Specifically about the depreciation schedules?
No, nothing. Nothing was brought to my attention.
I want to ask my colleague, if Matt Studer, if he has any further questions for you.
No, Mario, I don't.
Is there anything else that you think you would like to tell us regarding your work during the Enfield revaluation, or anything else regarding Vision's work or the assessor's work in the 2021 revaluation in Enfield?
I think Vision did an excellent job. I'm very proud of that town. I'm proud to be able to go back there in 5 years and work there again. After doing this town consecutive times, we feel like we get better at it each time. So I'm really surprised that these questions are coming up at this point. I don't think we've done anything negligent. Nothing was brought to my attention, and I feel strongly confident with the numbers that I produced. I inspected a lot of those properties myself. I've seen them. I know them all for the past 10 years. I know a lot of the history in town. I know where the values are heading now. I think we did a good job. I don't think there's any bad marks on Vision for this project. Our numbers from our sales passed tremendously. The dispersion of our work, everything was real smooth. When we made our initial table changes, there wasn't a lot of dispersion, distorted data. It was quite simple, I think. And hopefully we get to do that town again in 4 years. I feel bad that the board feels that way. I think they're getting some bad information. I don't think. I would be more than happy to look into that, but I don't think that's true. Or that would have been brought to my attention. I believe I was in town more than anyone.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
I think that's it.
Well, I really appreciate your time today. I also appreciate that June asked you to reach out to me, and then you did so almost immediately and offered to meet with me right away.
Absolutely.
As soon as this afternoon. So
Sure,
thank you for that. Thank you for sending me your resume. We may circle back with you if you have a follow-up question.
Yeah, it's mighty fun.
Let me take down your telephone number. What is it?
What'd you need?
Your telephone number?
Cell phone is 860-617-3327.
And I have your email. All right, well, if something comes up, we may ask you. Otherwise, thank
Oh,
you for your time.
absolutely.
When our report is issued, if I remember, I'll send a copy to you and Gene. You and June, if I forget. Either of you could ask the assessor for a copy.
Okay.
If you'd like to read it, and I appreciate your time and assistance here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Bye.
Maybe we'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'm gonna stop the recording, Matt.